Hey everybody, Mike Guillaume from Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, here with you for episode 134. Sports is getting ever so closer, at least in the case of MLS. Bundesliga is back. Serie A and La Liga on their way back as we speak. Training, full training, all that kind of stuff. We got lots to talk about tonight, so thanks for joining us here. My buddy Nick Pateras is with us here, as well as I work out these lovely technical difficulties from OBS in our live stream. But thanks for joining. We got lots to talk about in the world of soccer, and we already have Amador Rojas joining our live stream, asking for a shout out. Amador, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on. Let us know what you want to hear about in the world of soccer, and we will do our best here in the live chat. So thanks for joining episode 134 of Sons of a Pitch, an American Soccer Podcast. Nick, we got lots of information to talk about, plus some good soccer stuff with the Bundesliga and some other leagues starting up. How you doing tonight?
I'm feeling good, Mike. As you know, I was out last week. I appreciate you holding things down. Moved into the new house. Got most of the stuff unpacked. Things are starting to settle down a little bit, between painters and carpenters and cleaners and, about 20 different garbage bags out on the curb for the new trash collection service to get mad at. But we're doing all right, Mike.
Nice.
Settling down. I got my beer in front of me for the first time in a while. So, hey, there we go. Ready to talk soccer, Mike. And there's actual soccer to talk about. Not just the Bundesliga, but MLS news, legit MLS news. And we're going to get into the CBA and the Orlando tournament. But we've got some other stuff to cover first, Mike. We got some basic stuff.
We do. Some basic things to talk about here. We've got the real important stuff is first things first. We've got a live coming up on Saturday afternoon. The Coppa Italia is coming back. So Serie A, one of the worst hit areas in the world with coronavirus was Italy, and they are back. They are ready to play, and they're going to be doing the Coppa Italia semifinal second legs here. So make sure to follow us on Saturday afternoon for Napoli against Inter Milan with the second leg of their tie. Napoli is up 1-0. They pulled off a 1-0 victory over Inter at the San Siro in Milan. So they've got the upper leg in this one, no pun intended, with the second leg, but they are in the driver's seat, so to say. So it'll be good to see Serie A come back. We will be live for that at 2:45. I know I will be. It'll be 2:45 Central Time. Nick, what are your plans this weekend? You going to be able to join us for that, or am I going to be riding solo on that one?
It'll pardon the other pun, but it'll be a game time decision, Mike. We'll see what I got going on around the house here. But I got to say, man, watch out for Napoli. They have been slowly on the rise over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and it wouldn't surprise me if they pull off this upset and complete it and get to the Copa Finals there.
Yeah, I can see that as well, especially being up 1-0 with the road victory at San Siro. It could very well get done, but should be a good game. I'm excited to cover something other than Bundesliga, as well as Liga MX and whatnot. Been covering a few different leagues here, and God bless it, I cannot wait until MLS is back so that I can be doing these live games for MLS and actually know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. Should be a little bit better with Inter, since I am an Inter fan. But anyways, other things that we have to talk about. Nick, what do you got?
Just a couple quick things, listeners, viewers, fans. If you want to interact with us, make sure you follow us along on Twitter at SOP Soccer, on Facebook and YouTube at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, or you can email us podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. It's our goal on the show here to grow the sport through conversation, and that's the best way for you to join our conversation is through social media or through our lives that we're doing on YouTube, broadcasting the episodes live, broadcasted games like Amador Rojas is doing right now and joining us. Shout out again, as well as some of our other, diehard fans, followers, listeners. Rocky Does It All, as well as Ray Orozco, who actually sent us a pretty important message, Mike. You got to read it first. I don't know how much if you want to read the whole thing or if you want to read some good sections on it. But it really kind of touches on the current sentiments around the American society today, as well as touching on the sports culture. So I don't know how much you want to read of it. It's a long message, but if there's something that really stood out to you, I'll take the time now to read it.
Yeah, a great message there from Ray Orozco, and he was just kind of touching on the current, sentiments of everything going on with this George Floyd protests and the racism and systemic racism and whatnot. Really was a great message from him. Just kind of breaking down an overall, kind of an outside look of it, as well as his personal experiences through all of this as well. So, it kind of brings up a good point for us, as well as everybody in the world right now is what, how are we talking about this? How have we been impacted? How are we going to impact others? How can we make the world a better place for everybody involved? And with this, I'm having a hard time pulling it up here. But
okay,
he had mentioned
I can read some excerpts out of it. Yeah, so what Ray says, and Ray, thank you for sending this in, and any other listeners or viewers, feel free to send us a message. We're happy to talk about it. One thing he says is, I am a person of color, and I've experienced racism before, and international competition in sport allow for the xenophobia in traditional media to really kind of come out. And one of the things he points out is certain media sources will use sporting events, especially soccer games where there's a huge Latin American influence, to make comments about immigration and politics about that. And he says, really, we need to be focusing on the fact that we're all Americans. And it's not to downplay what's going on with the George Floyd protests, the Black Lives Matter movement, the police brutality criticisms that are out there. But this is another chapter to the discussion of how sports play into it. And people will take a sporting event like a soccer game and use it to comment on immigration. And other people will use it to comment on American society, but the different parts of it. But his main point is we need to start looking at it as we're all Americans. Ray Orozco is just as American as Mike, as you or I. Mike, you weren't even born in this country. It impacts you personally as well. So I think Ray makes a great point. We're not going to get into too many details. I don't think there's enough time in every podcast in the world to really cover all of this. But he makes a good point, is especially in sports, the team, my opinion is the team is there first. And when you put these different people together on a team with the sole goal of winning a championship, it really should be a mirror of society, that everyone should be on the same team with the same goal. And that's Ray's point. We're all Americans.
Absolutely. I think that's something that's really important. Kind of the outlook is, we got to stop talking about dividing each other. We have got to come together and, and be together as Americans. And you know what? Yeah, I am an immigrant. I'm a legal immigrant. My father was born here in the United States. My mother was born in Canada. I was born in Canada and moved here when I was 7-8 years old. And we went through this whole lengthy process of coming here, and I'm an American, man. I've got my, my USA hat on. Sometimes it's the Blue Jays hat. I still love my culture, just as, Mexican Americans love their culture and whatnot. But hey, we are all American. We live here in America. Let's be together. Let's stop talking about who, you're black, you're white, you're brown. No, we are all one people as Americans, and Ray has a great point with all that. So thanks again to Ray for really bringing that up. It really reminds me of kind of a time when I think it was back in the early 90s, maybe mid 90s, when it wasn't Samuel L. Jackson, I believe Morgan Freeman had made a comment on 2020, some type of interview, and was saying, we got to stop talking about all this. We just have to look at each other as Americans. And that stands true again today. And there's a lot of media out there that will try to, throw different viewpoints out there. But damn it, every single one of us is Americans here. And let's move on to the next point.
Well said. Good transition, Mike. That's one of your fortes here on the show. Is your great segue.
Hey, you know what? I do what I can do.
But right, it influences everything in American culture, including the sports. So we're going to talk about it. But now we can move to the sports part of the sports, and that's the soccer, especially the Bundesliga, where they have been in full swing now for a few weeks, where there is a lot of Americans playing, especially those in the USMNT current player pool. Mike, we did a live with Bayer versus Bayern Leverkusen, or I'm sorry, Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich. Yeah, it's been a long day. I'll just put it that way. And we didn't get to see any Americans featured in that game. We did get to see Alphonso Davies, right, product of Canada. So, Mike, what were your kind of general thoughts of the Bundesliga this weekend? And then we can touch on some of the Americans' performances.
Yeah, so in there, Joel Hampton, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on. And he says, America, damn straight. And then Nicholas, I'm good. How about you? Nick, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm typing up the response right now.
There you go. All right. So, yeah, this game here, as far as that game goes, there was no USMNT presence there, but there was Alphonso Davies. One of Alphonso Davies, probably one of his worst games as of recently. He's been pretty strong over the last 3 or 4 matches since the return from coronavirus. This one wasn't his best match, but he still, he turned out fine. So overall, it was a good match for the first probably 30 minutes or so. Bayer Leverkusen jumped out to a 1-0 lead. Kind of got exciting there for a minute. Once Bayern tied it up, you're thinking, hey, this is going to be a hell of a match. And then Bayern Munich just took over. The talent was a complete disparity. Looking at Bayer Leverkusen, especially without their star in Kai Havertz, it was going to be a tall order for them regardless, taking on the top of the table leaders in Bayern Munich. But Bayern showed their talent and dominated the rest of the game. It finished 4-2. It was 4-1 at one point. But overall, a decent game to watch, at least for the first 40 minutes or so. But there are other games as far as, hey, we got Rocky jumping in here. Rocky, how you doing, man? Glad you could join us again. There was some other games as far as some of the USMNT guys. Overall, Canada men's national team with Alphonso Davies, good matchup, but nothing to write home about. Probably one of his worst games since coming back. So, as far as the other games, what other games did we have on the slate last weekend? As far as the USMNT, how did Josh Sargent do with Werder Bremen?
So I was reading up a little bit on just Josh Sargent. They got a 1-0 victory most recently. They're trying to stave off relegation. I forget in the Bundesliga this season if it's the bottom 2 or the bottom 3, but right now they are second from the bottom of that table, 3 points behind Dusseldorf and 5 points ahead of Paderborn. They're going to have to win the next couple games if they're going to stave off relegation. And we said it during our live coverage. We really think Josh Sargent needs to get out of Werder Bremen. He is not getting starter minutes. Granted, he's still very young. Granted, he might not fit the exact system they want, or, with the coronavirus layoff, maybe they're trying to ease some of their guys back. But when you're in the relegation zone, there's no time for any of that. You got to put your best guys up front. And right now, their best guys, their regular starters, aren't scoring goals. Josh Sargent needs to be starting and getting 90 minutes worth, getting service, getting meaningful minutes. He has decent shifts with there, but he's just not getting the ball. So I think he's got to get out of Werder Bremen, something that we've talked about the last few episodes. So again, they had a 1-0 win. Sargent had a decent game, but nothing really on the stat sheet. The other kind of American influence that was going on this weekend, you had John Brooks over at Wolfsburg, and I think they actually, that was a couple weeks ago. He matched up with Werder Bremen, but let's see what happened
that was this
Wolfsburg.
Week.
Oh no, that was yesterday.
Yep. 1-0 Wolfsburg victory.
Wolfsburg got the victory. So I'm screwing up my German stuff. My days and my nights are mixed up here. So Wolfsburg beats Werder Bremen 1-0. Sargent, good game, no goals. John Brooks, better game, doesn't concede anything. And again, it looks like he's becoming the favorite to be one of our starting center backs here, Mike. Yeah. Would you agree with that? Do you think the U.S. player pool is still deep enough where Brooks is competing for a spot, or do you think he's trying to not lose it?
Well, I mean, he's got the edge right now just because he's playing soccer. A lot of these other guys aren't even playing right now. So that's, that's kind of, he's standing out there. But I don't know. I can't get behind him. He's really not lighting it on fire, and I want to see a little bit more. I want to see more from my center backs. We're not talking about a USMNT that's going to compete with the Panamas and the Hondurases. We want a USMNT that's going to compete with the Spains, Netherlands, Mexico, the upper echelon, right? So I don't know if what I'm seeing from him is really worth kind of guaranteeing him that spot. But again, he has the upper hand because he's the only one playing. So the fact that, Miazga's not playing and Aaron Long's not playing and all these other guys are just sitting on the sidelines, maybe doing some individual training.
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez, right? So there's just the fact that he's out there and we have something to talk about with him kind of gives him the edge. But
sure,
that's my thoughts on him.
Cool. The next American, obviously Tyler Adams. Everyone knows him playing over at Red Bull Leipzig. He actually started this game in the midfield, and American soccer Twitter went nuts because we all know that Greg Berhalter plays him as a right back and doesn't allow him to use that speed and creativity and playmaking that he has the talent for. So in Leipzig, he gets to play as that number 6, as that midfielder, and had a really, really good statistical game. I think he completed something like 94% of his passes. The only real hiccup was one of his defensive back teammates ended up getting a red card. So Adams had to shift back to try and help shore up the defense and ended up finishing the game as more of a defender right back. So he didn't get a full 90 as that midfielder, but again, a solid outing by Adams. Hopefully this performance makes Greg Berhalter try to shift Adams into more of a midfield role, even if it's just a defensive midfield role. How great would it be to see him and McKenney next to each other with, I don't know, with Gio Reyna on the wing or Pulisic in front of him or something like that. I mean, that would be fantastic to see. I doubt it'll ever come to fruition under Berhalter, but maybe this is the first step towards that. And again, if you've got Serginho Dest and Reggie Cannon taking the next step, Adams is still one of your best 11 probably. You want to get those guys on the pitch. Maybe it forces Berhalter's hand to move him to the midfield. Mike, your thoughts on Leipzig, Tyler Adams?
Tyler Adams has to be in the midfield. The whole right back conversation with him, I think, is just nuts, personally. He's got to be in kind of that defensive midfield spot as a replacement for Michael Bradley, which, look, Bradley is, we all know he's done with the national team, right? He can be there for that veteran presence and whatnot, but his days of captaincy, of being the leader of that club is over, and pretty much because he was the captain of the club that didn't qualify for the World Cup, as we bring up these sore wounds. So Tyler Adams, I think he's the guy to go into that defensive midfield spot that Michael Bradley held for so long. He has the talent, he's got the speed, he has the defensive tenacity and the training and, a lot of time in systems playing that high press, which is something that I think the USMNT could help with. So overall, that's where I'd like to see him. The fact that he got the start is a good sign. Now, will he kind of step up and take the reins? I mean, we want to start seeing some really strong performances out of these guys, and it kind of seems to be a very common theme is that you've got Josh Sargent at Werder Bremen, you've got John Brooks at Wolfsburg, you got Tyler Adams coming on as a sub, starting out, not doing too much. They've just been very quiet, and I really want to start seeing these guys take the lead, right? Like Weston Mckenney in that first game back against Dortmund, even though Weston Mckenney didn't have a great game, and had some turnovers and whatnot, but he was the best player on that team. So I want to start seeing those types of performances out of these guys, instead of just talking about, hey, well, he came on for 20 minutes as a sub. Hey, he didn't really make any glaring errors. He was kind of quiet. We didn't really talk much about him. I want to start seeing some better performances. So and speaking of Weston Mckenney, his club, a 1-1 draw with FC Union Berlin. Really nothing to talk about there because he was, I believe, not even in the 18 or that's correct. He was not even in the 18, so I'm guessing probably a yellow card suspension because remember he was sitting on the yellow card and should have got sent off last week.
Right.
So it's either a suspension from Bundesliga because he should have been sent off or a suspension based on yellow card accumulation. But he didn't play in that one, and Schalke is just a shit show right now. I mean, those guys, they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, they came back after the COVID break, sitting in 8th in the table, poised to maybe jump up to 7th or 6th, especially if Wolfsburg was dropping points. But Schalke seemed resigned to just say, okay, fine, we can hang out middle of the table. We're not going to Champions League. We probably won't go to Europa. We'll just hang in the middle of the table and just try not to get hurt. And it shows in their play. Weston Mckenney has been the best player for them since the season resumed. He's pretty much the only player who's attacking and playing the ball forward. It's just too bad he can't score goals from where he's assigned on the pitch, where his position is. But you're right. He had a bad game, or he had a worse game the week before. A couple bad tackles. Should have gotten sent off. Let him take a seat. Let him get his head right. I hope it's just a case of I'm playing my hardest and my teammates are slacking off. Maybe this is something the coach need to show the rest of the team. Like, hey, I'm going to sit the guy who's working his hardest and then just show you how bad you really are. And then they ended up drawing Union Berlin, who maybe isn't clear of relegation, but is still not a very good team this season. But I will say for Mckenney, there was a really nice little piece at halftime of the Bayer Leverkusen Bayern Munich game that we were watching, and it showed Mckenney as a youth player in Germany, and I'm talking probably like U12, something around there, at least judging on the grainy home videos that they were showing. And it showed him, and it showed his old coach, and was like, yeah, Weston's first game, he scored 8 goals for us. We moved him up 2 age groups, and he never lost a game. Like that's just how good Mckenney was as a young youth player. Then coming back to the United States, getting picked up by Dallas. We all know Dallas's Academy is one of the best in MLS, if not the entire country. And Schalke was the team that came calling. They kept their eyes on him when he went back to Dallas. They continued to keep tabs. They brought him back, and he just knew it was home when he came back to Schalke. So cool little piece about Weston Mckenney. Hopefully it continues to build a pipeline of Americans to Europe, or at the very least, Americans to higher quality teams to continue to develop their talent. But hey, we all know that if you're going to play in the Bundesliga, you're probably going to get a better experience than playing in the MLS. So that's just kind of the reality of where the league's at right now. Not saying it won't change in the next 5, 10, 20 years or so. Mike, that's pretty much all I got regarding the Bundesliga. I mean, it's pretty much Bayern locked it up, and then the next 3 or 4 teams are just jockeying for that Champions League spot. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean that'll make Rocky happy, the resident Bayern fan here, and I think it was Benjamin Jansen as well. He's he's a good fan as well from the Netherlands that has joined us on a few of these lives. It's their title to lose. It's as simple as that. Can anybody catch them? I don't think so. I think the Bundesliga is pretty much done, so I'm kind of glad that La Liga is starting back up. However, I don't have any of the streaming services necessary to catch any La Liga games. But we do have ESPN Plus for the Serie A and Coppa Italia games, so excited about that. I think the Bundesliga is done. As far as some other, USMNT player teams, you have Fortuna Dusseldorf, who drew 2-2 with Hoffenheim last in the game the other day. However, the goalkeeper, the number 1 for USMNT, Zach Steffen, he did not dress in this one. He's getting back on the training field. I mean, there's been some Instagram posts apparently with him kind of suiting up and getting ready to play, but he didn't make the bench on this one. So that's what we've got.
Can we still call Zach Steffen the number 1? The guy hasn't played in months. Like, can we still call him the number 1 even if he's working back from injury?
Yeah, who's the number 1? Who's going to compete with him?
Let's see, my goalie player pool knowledge is a little weak, but I mean, you've still got Guzan, who can have good games. Do you call up? probably not. Everyone's been calling for it for years, but they've never called up Stephen Fry.
Right.
In theory, you could call up Bill Hamid, but I'll never be his proponent. That's for sure. I mean, do you bring Ethan Horvath in as like a 3? I'm spacing. Sean Johnson. I mean, these are all guys that at this point, considering Stefan's injury and considering the rest of them just being on hiatus, they could all compete for that number 1 spot, Mike.
Yeah, I can't
Turner,
see any.
Revolution, New England Revs,
No,
Matt Turner.
no.
Like he could be there too. That's the talk, though, Mike.
There's so much talk about who could be the number 1, and honestly, there's no point in it because Zach Steffen is the number 1. He got signed by Man City. When there was a competition between him, Horvath, Bono, some of the other players, he clearly won that competition. Are we going to reopen the competition because he's had some injury issues when there's no USMNT games going on? Absolutely not. Now, if the USMNT was playing in a big tournament right now, say the Gold Cup was right now, or say World Cup qualifying, which there is a new format of that, which we should discuss at some point. I actually just got a reminder of that as I look on my other screen here. But, then, yeah, maybe we should look at other options. But right now, there's no other options, period. So... Well, here's my ESPN as it goes off in the background because I'm searching through, looking at another player who is USMNT kinda youth U.S. national team, and that is Giovanni Reyna. He did make a substitute appearance for the second place team in the Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund. Came on with about 15 minutes or so left and didn't do anything, which is kind of what we've been seeing from him so far, which I'm still pissed off about that first game. We did that live with Schalke and Dortmund in that first game back from coronavirus, and he was making the start. I had the lineups there with him starting, and then all of a sudden he wasn't in the game, and it was because he got injured in warm-ups. So still waiting on Giovanni Reyna's first start, but that's the rest.
Yeah. And what sucks even more is we all saw the highlights that he was putting up, shortly before the COVID break, and he was really coming into form even at age 17. But I guess we'll just have to wait a little bit longer to see what he can do, at that stage for a consistent full season, getting starters minutes. But it's exciting, Mike. It's exciting. Do you still have Gio Reyna training with the full team? A lot of people are saying bring him up with the full USMNT team, and a lot of other people are saying, well, he's still only 17. Like, yeah, he's playing with Dortmund, but you don't want to bring him up too fast. Where do you fall?
Bring him up, man. There's no question about it. Bring him up. Let him play. Let's see what happens. I mean, you've got nothing to lose at this point with the USMNT. You've got a guy who's playing for Borussia Dortmund, getting minutes with that team, and you've got other guys like Jossie Zardes who are, playing for the club.
Always got to go to Zardes. Always. That's everyone's favorite punching bag.
I'm telling you.
But
You're looking at Reyna.
In U.S. soccer.
He's a striker, man. Reyna is a striker. He's been playing for Dortmund as a striker / winger, but more of a striker. And okay,
so was
him.
Pulisic, and are you comparing Pulisic to Zardes? No. You want to compare Josh Sargent and Josie Altidore to Zardes, go right ahead. And I think that's just, comparing styles of play. Don't compare Gio Reyna to Zardes. But the other thing, too, you got to remember, and to get back to the Zach Steffen conversation, Steffen knows Berhalter's system. Zardes knows Berhalter's system. Hopefully by now these other American players are starting to catch up, and that's not going to be an advantage for them, and the true best players can get on the pitch. I don't know if Gio Reyna is going to be able to play in that system. I don't know if Christian Pulisic is going to be able to reach his full potential under Greg Berhalter's system, but he's still the best guy we got, and he's going to get on the pitch regardless. That could be a big discussion for another day, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're chatting here, Rocky says, I love Walker Zimmerman at 27. Yeah, I mean, Walker Zimmerman's he's a beast in the mid, in the middle of that defense. So, definitely see him kind of holding down one of those center back spots as we touched on, what's his name there, John Brooks,
Yep.
So again, international soccer is so relative to what's going on in the world of soccer at the time. So if Zimmerman's playing well and John Brooks is playing the way he's playing right now, then yeah, Zimmerman will get the look over him. So it's just kind of a crapshoot. But Rocky, based on your last comment, I think we definitely have to chat offline. I think you're onto something there about the fascism. But anyways, let's soccer.
So let's knock out a few quick headlines here, some things around the MLS and American soccer before we jump into a quick break. The training moratorium has been lifted. MLS teams are back into full squad training, assuming that the league has approved their safety plan and social distancing and medical staff and all that good stuff. So the league is still having oversight with a lot of the medical stuff. But teams are back training again, which is great news for fans, great news for players, unless you are Luis Caicedo of the New England Revolution, an integral part of their midfield. He actually is out for the year. He had surgery to repair a damaged meniscus in his knee. I don't know if it's his left or right knee. So now the Revolution, who came off a really strong finish to last season, making the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. Bruce Arena comes in, kind of revamps the team, rejuvenates everybody, trying to solidify his roster. Gustavo Bo comes in. Now Luis Caicedo's out, so they're really going to have to look for some depth at the midfield to allow that team to try and sustain some of the success that they had at the end of last season. They started off this year, I think, with a loss and a draw, so maybe not the best start that they would have wanted before the COVID break. But hey, we're going to a tournament format, so just got to get hot at the right time. So there's a couple headlines there. The Columbus Crew, the aforementioned Columbus Crew of Giazzi Zardis's affiliation, actually broke ground on a new training facility and club headquarters where Mapfre Stadium stood, and then they're going to build a brand new stadium right next door to it. So it's kind of sad to see the first soccer-specific stadium in the United States. Arguably, there's some history about like an old college stadium being that, but anyway. For modern soccer, at the very least, the first soccer-specific stadium being demolished and rebuilt up. But you're still going to have the history. It's still going to be with the Crew. The Crew are in Columbus, so a lot of good history there. And the last headline that I wanted to throw out there, Mike, one of our former favorite punching bags here in Chicago, Alexander Katai. And I know you got to laugh when you read about this story, so I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so Alexander Katai, his wife made the headlines, not him, at least during some of the protests and whatnot during this break. So there was some posts that his wife had made on social media, on Instagram, that were very insensitive, to say the least, right? So apparently he got called out because of his wife's posts. Some of them were, well, all of them at least, were in the native language for her in Serbian, and where Alexander Katai is from is Serbia, a heavily socialist area, and then made some comments on these things, and they were out of line, period. Yes, they were out of line. However, this was his wife. This was not him. And there's plenty of different arguments out there, right? Well, if it's his wife making these kind of comments, you could probably see him making these kind of comments. Whatever. So there was just too much... it wasn't clear enough for LA Galaxy, especially with this time as things go on. And they decided to release him by mutual consent. They had met on a last Thursday afternoon. They probably talked about it a little bit, and they both went their separate ways. So the LA Galaxy releases Alexander Katai. My question is, with all of this, regardless of whether it's right or wrong or whatever, my question is, for the LA Galaxy, especially the Galaxy who like to bend the rules and get rules made up for them and whatever, will this count as their one contract that they decided to break or, buy out during this 2020 MLS season? Because that's the rule in MLS. You get one contract that you can buy out. Now, Is that going to count as the one contract? That's the only concern I have. Was whether it's right or wrong, that's for everybody else to decide. Alexander Katai, will he get another job somewhere? I'm sure he'll get a job somewhere. He's a decent winger as far as soccer goes, as far as football goes. But the type of comments that were made by his wife, there was no place for those types of comments. And he's paying that consequence with his release from the LA Galaxy. So my main question, MLS, is that the one, or are we going to make a new rule where we say, hey, due to current circumstances and social, whatever, this is how we're going to look at it, and it won't count as that. So that's where I'm at. What are your thoughts, Nick?
I mean, yeah, you kind of read the recaps of what she said and kind of how it all unfolded. Yeah, you agree that you can't just ignore this. It is to see that the Galaxy released him for comments his wife made. So I don't know if they based it on any sort of contractual good behavior clause type of thing, or club standards clause, or if they just said, look, we can't have this, especially the way the current feelings are going on in American society. We have to part ways with you, and we have our one buyout. It could have gone that way. But the fact that they had it as a mutual agreement between the two of them, maybe that's their loophole, Mike, what you were looking for. This is how the LA Galaxy get around it. Well, since we came to a mutual parting of the ways, we didn't actually buy him out. He agreed to be released. Like that could be some really fun sports lawyering going on there. And God, I wish I could be there to hear those arguments and be a part of them myself. That could be the way they get around it. Maybe. I don't know what the contract, the fine print of the MLS league rules, but that would be what I certainly would argue. On the other hand, I mean the Galaxy get out of probably a dumpy contract, right? Like, what was he making? Close to 800,000.
Well,
maybe
he
something
was DP level with Chicago Fire. So the fact that he was probably a high TAM player with the Galaxy, right? It depends. Now, talent-wise, is that something that he could have brought? Well, I mean, you look at that front line with Chicharito and Katai on one wing, and who would be the other winger there? For LA Galaxy.
Well, you still got Dos Santos in the middle.
Dos Santos in the middle, right? Yeah, the three DPs. Their DPs were they got rid of Alessandrini, but they had they've got Chicharito, they've got Katai on that wing. There was somebody else that was really, really good on the other wing.
Yeah.
And overall for $800K, is Katai worth that type of money as far as strictly soccer goes? Probably. I think he was decent enough to be a low-end type DP with Chicago. He came on, he played well in certain times. But overall, they get out of that contract. It's not somebody you want to be associated with, with those type of public, comments and all that kind of stuff. That's not who you want associated with your business and your organization. We are a business.
So, his contract, or I should say his salary cap hit was just over $612,000, according to the LA Times article. But if he was a DP, then obviously they're paying him at least $1.2 million or something. Yeah. So they can go out and sign other guys. In fact, there's already rumors that they're looking at another Argentine player who's playing over in Europe right now, and his name escapes me. I just saw a quick article about it. But this could be an easy way for them on the business side to free up some money, on the social side to put any issues to rest, and then on the club and player side to open up a roster spot. Right. So
Rocky brought in Rocky at least is on top of his game, although we're not. Leggett and Pavone as well. So they've got Leggett, who's up and coming USMNT, and Christian Pavone, who's one of the stars of the league. Young, talented, is probably going to get sold for a ton of money. So, he makes another point with Galaxy is all stars with no chemistry. Exactly. That is the Galaxy that was last year. And, great pun as well. But, this is, you've got Pavone on one side, Katai on the other with Chicharito in the middle. I mean, that's a hell of a front line. But overall, we've got to take a quick break for halftime. So thanks for joining with us here so far. We will be back in a couple of minutes to pull on halftime, and a quick message for everybody that's out there listening. We are looking for sponsors. So we have a sponsorship available here on the YouTube side. It is listed down in our ticker below. If you are interested in sponsoring us and growing the sport of soccer here in the United States of America, please shoot us an email. podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. Everything that we get goes right back into our podcast. If you take a look back at like some of our first YouTube videos that we did, it was me sitting in a trailer with some horrible iPad graphics from iMovie iPad edition to now the good stuff with the green screens, the background, all that. So let us know if you're interested in sponsoring our podcast. Other than that, we will be back in just a couple of minutes after our halftime break, and we have lots to discuss about the Orlando tournament, etc., etc. So we'll talk to you guys in just a little bit. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, hey, soccer fans, welcome back to the second half of tonight's show. We want to thank everyone who is tuned into us live on YouTube. Joel Hampton, Rocky Does It All, Amador Rojas, and anyone else who's out there. Mike, I know some of your family's probably watching as well, just because they don't get to see enough of your pretty face during the week. But also, we want to thank all of our sponsors as well. We want to thank Donovan Food Brokerage for supporting us from really early on in our podcast for the last couple of years, as well as nice premium Iceland Pure Spring water. So thank you to both of our podcast sponsors, and we are looking for any YouTube sponsors. Support our channel, grow your brand, grow the sport of soccer. I mean, what's not to like about it? It's a win-win-win. But anyway, as we get back into the second half, we're going to dive right back into the conversation. We're going to turn to the MLS now. A couple of big headlines. The new collective bargaining agreement has been agreed upon, and the Orlando tournament for the 2020 season is all but a certainty.
So when are they going to announce it?
It's all but certain, Mike. Everyone knows about it, right? This is soccer. First you get the leaks, then you get the rumors, then you get the unofficial reports, and then finally you get the official announcement from the league after everyone knows everything about it anyway. Just how soccer goes around the world, I guess. But anyway, the collective bargaining agreement. We can't have games unless we have the bargaining. Let's double check on that here. So the CBA expired at the end of February. Or at the end of January, I think. So we had to get this new one in place. Unfortunately, the coronavirus hit, so it gave them a little bit more time. Maybe not. I don't know. But really, there's like 6 big points that this new CBA addresses, and the new CBA runs through January 31st of 2025. The big points on it, and then Mike, I want to get your input on this. You know, you're an accountant, you're a negotiator. You do a lot of claims work. Like, I want to hear your thoughts because I feel it was kind of a one-sided deal. That might be a good thing. So some of the big points here are that player spending has increased. By the end of 2024, the minimum salary in the MLS is going to be $109,000, and there's going to be increased contributions to the players' 401ks. So think about that, Mike. In another 4 years, if you play soccer professionally in the United States, you're a 6-figure salary. I think that's a pretty good thing within 30 years of this league that they're paying everyone at least 6 figures. Not a bad move.
Yeah, agreed. And that's what needs to be done. I mean, if these guys, if they're playing in MLS, they need to be making 6 figures, period. I mean, I remember it back in the day when I first started following soccer with MLS, and some of these guys were making $35K a year, and I was a 21-year-old fresh out of college making 65K, and I'm like, I'm looking at these guys as like, the superstars, and I'm making double what they are as a 20-year-old working for Walgreens. Okay, so it's definitely a good thing that they're there and getting kind of that in the contract to say, hey, they're going to make at least a livable wage. And for what they're doing, right? These guys are on national television every single weekend, and they should be represented with a paycheck of that amount, period. So I'm glad for it.
Absolutely.
And, it's a good move. There's going to be considerations that they're going to have with this new CBA that wasn't ratified, and then it was ratified, and then it wasn't, and then we're going to bring in these new negotiations, and it's something you're seeing with Major League Baseball right now, which is, Major League Baseball's struggling to find an agreement right now that'll work for everybody involved, and MLS has agreed on this, so again, they're missing out on an opportunity to get this out there to the public and say, hey, we're going to be doing this going forward. Make the announcement, get it out there. People are dying for live sports. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm looking, Serie A. When's Coppa Italia coming back? Bundesliga's here. When's La Liga coming back? When is Premier League coming back? When is this? This is an opportunity for this league to become something special, to find viewers that normally would not be viewers in their case. And they need to jump on this immediately. And why they're not doing that, I don't know. You look at the website, you're not seeing anything. Give us the details of when this is going to happen. You have an opportunity, MLS. Jump on it, because I'm sick of waiting for it.
Absolutely. What really kind of sparked my interest in this being one of the first major points they addressed, the minimum salary, is if you had guys before who are like, well, there's a lot that living and working in the United States has to offer, but I can still make double or triple the salary going to some Central American or South American country, or playing for these minor leagues in Europe or Asia or whatever. Well, now if you're getting paid more, if you're guaranteed $109,000 per season, and on top of it, you have all the benefits of living in the United States and raising a family here, and all the other things that go along with it. It's going to persuade a lot of talent to come or stay in the United States. So I think that's huge that way. The other thing you talked about it, Mike, you started to talk about it, where you're saying, like, these guys do so much for their clubs, they need to be compensated for it. But it's also the demand on it. I mean, a lot of the times it's easy for us as guys who work, 9-to-5 type jobs, in our industries, to just say, well, this is how my company does it. This is how our jobs do things. Why can't we hold our athletes to the same standards? Well, they're 24/7. They have to keep their body in peak physical condition on top of everything else that they got to go through to maintain being a pro, let alone everything they've done to get to the pros. So they're definitely deserving of these salaries and even more. So that's kind of the first big point, everything that I wanted to touch on that. The next thing, I know you've always tracked TAM and GAM and the value of what players bring in that and how teams have traded cash to get players. Well, TAM, targeted allocation money, which had to be used for player salaries in the past, is now being phased out. Over the next 2-3 years, you're going to see TAM getting phased out, and it's all going to become either general allocation money or player salary money. I've seen mixed reactions, because on the one hand, whatever TAM money that they had this last year, whatever 1.2 million each team got, is now just free for the club players, which that seems to be the trend, right? The worry was the owners would pocket the money or use it to develop infrastructure. But I think the trend is they're actually using it to buy players. They want to get better guys here, Mike. So what are your thoughts on getting rid of TAM?
Well, I'm okay with it. Looking at the end goal, right, and the end game. TAM was brought in to say, because the main difference between GAM and TAM was GAM could be used for the operational side of things, right? Putting it to the academies, building facilities, whatnot. So the fact that TAM was brought in to say, all right, we're going to spend this money on the players themselves and their salaries. Now all of a sudden you've got a talent gap. The teams that are spending all their TAM, your Toronto FCs, your LA Galaxies, your LAFCs, those clubs, the other teams that had, your Columbus Crews, your Sporting Kansas Cities, your lower market, smaller market clubs, they are now like, well, we have to spend this money on the players or else we're not going to be able to compete. So they're spending the money on the players, and now at this point, where at least what I'm seeing is that, okay, we can start moving this to, GAM, because we're going to see the money spent on the players. So overall, I'm okay with it. But I want to see, personally for me, I want to see more of an overall spending spree, basically. I want to see more money put into the salary cap. I want to see more money spent on these rosters. We are at a point in this league where every ownership group has the money to be spending on stadiums, facilities. This is not just a cheap investment type of thing. You're big time now with MLS. This is no longer the little MLS that it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I want to see more of an influx on the player talent side of things with the salary cap. And I think this is a move in the right direction. However, I want to see a little bit more implemented in that way, especially when we're talking about, can we compete in the Champions League? Everybody seems to forget in the Champions League, I mean, that first leg of all of those semifinals. No, it was the quarterfinals. We didn't make the semifinals.
Yeah.
You know, every American team had gotten blown out. Atlanta got blown out at Azteca. You know, LAFC didn't get to play their first leg. They're probably the luckiest of the group. But even Montreal lost to, who was it, San Carlos? Or one of those clubs that took out...
A team no one had ever heard of and probably will never hear of
exactly,
again.
Right? It was not a good start for the Champions League until once coronavirus hit. So, overall, I want to see more money put in. You know, and that way, hopefully, we'll see the better talent on the field and get the league better. But overall, TAM being kind of phased out, I'm okay with that as long as that money gets put into the right spots. So that's my standpoint on that.
I like the fact that the teams now have a little bit more flexibility with the money, and I think the trend is that they're using it to invest in the players, and that they're using a lot of the other revenue that's generated to go into academies, player development, marketing, facilities, and stuff like that, expanding front offices. Because, I mean, the clubs know, like, you can make first of all, the owners know you can make a lot of money if you're a good MLS team. You know, if they didn't think that, they wouldn't be in the game, and the franchise fees wouldn't be over $350 million per club right now. Right. And you see a lot of these owners own sports franchises in different organizations. I mean, just look at Arthur Blank in Atlanta. The guy's got the Falcons and Atlanta United. Crafts got the Revs and the Patriots, and both of those NFL franchises have huge staffs and huge training. Like, they know the value of investing in these sports clubs. So I think that's going to trickle down. But again, flexibility, let your clubs build it the way you want to. Maybe a club like Dallas, who's got a great academy, doesn't need to drop tons of money on player salaries because they can always be competitive with the players, and then maybe focus on building, you know, chicken and the egg type stuff. Let's build better facilities and get better coaches to attract better players, versus in Atlanta, who's like, let's buy some of the best players and then use the money we make off them to invest in everything else. So that's kind of both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
The next headline is tied into that, is that media money and television rights, marketing and all that is directly tied into player spending now. I think eventually, by the time this CBA runs out, 25% of all the TV deals and media and stuff can go towards, that a team receives can go towards player salaries. So that makes sense if you're going to raise the minimum wage. It also makes sense if you're going to kind of phase out TAM. So you're more money in the pot. And I think we all talked about that. Next one was a real hot button issue, increased charter flights. Mike, what do you think about the increase in charter flights?
Yeah, before we get to that, Rocky makes some good points here in the chat regarding Brian Fernandez.
Sure.
And you know, the Liga MX side kind of fleecing Portland and really screwed them over with that type of deal. I mean, they've got a guy who, you know, was on a contract, a DP contract, who came in, did extremely well. They went through half a season, basically a full season, of trying to get this guy, you know, acclimated to Portland, acclimated to MLS. He had done well, and you know, there's definitely a FIFA fair play, FIFA type of lawsuit that could be put on his club site. I believe it was Next Casa there, and I think it was, I believe it was Rocky that was talking to us during one of those, I think it was the Santos Next Casa live commentary or live stream reaction that we did. You know, they were hiding his issues, right, to get this deal done. They knew the guy had serious drug type of issues going on, and they hid it and to try and make some money. And then that's kind of the, you know, that's a whole nother conversation as far as the ethics that are involved with Liga MX and whatnot compared to MLS. But when you're talking about, you know, the TV revenues and all that kind of stuff, it's got to get brought down to the players. You know, that's the bread and butter for the MLS as a league. So, you know, definitely all for that. That's good that they're kind of going in that direction. But yeah, it's definitely you know, Rocky definitely has a point there with Brian Fernandez.
And he adds in that the Timbers wanted to keep him, but the league said no. And again, that gets back to the league being a single entity structure, and those running the league having the final say in contracts, rosters, all that good stuff. So where that single entity structure has done a lot of good for the league and allowed stable growth and able to keep this league going now in its 25th season. I would have liked to see them keep Fernandez. He was an exciting player to watch. But getting back to the CBA here, the increased charter flights. By the end of the CBA, all playoffs, all Champions League games have to be charter flights, and they're slowly increasing the minimum number of charter flights during the season throughout the next 5 seasons. So, Mike, I think this is a no-brainer, right? You're going to play in a professional league. You're going to have games where your teams have to go literally cross-continent, international borders you're crossing. Chartered flights got to be a must if you want to have your players ready to play their best, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the charter flight piece for me was something that I have completely disagreed with from the get-go. I know you've made some points on it as, these other smaller market clubs couldn't quite keep up with that, then that's how it goes. As far as you're a professional athlete in a professional league that's trying to become one of the better leagues in the world, if some teams can do it and the other teams can't, then that's too bad for them. Let the teams that can do it, and guess what? I'll tell you right now, the other teams would figure out a way to do that so that the players they could sign would be in the same position. So charter flights are a must. I'm glad that they've included that in a constant increase, but honestly, for me, it should just be at the discretion of the team. I mean, you look at any professional sports league, that's how it is. That's how they roll. It's completely at the discretion of that league, that team ownership, and go from there. But I want to touch a little bit about this Orlando tournament. I mean, we've got some perspective information as far as teams supposedly reporting to the Orlando area for their training camps and whatnot on June 24th. So another 2 or 3 weeks from now. And then kind of getting things going, it's going to last approximately 35 days or so, kind of similar to a World Cup, right? We're going to have we're going to have group stage games, and those group stage games are going to count towards the regular season. And then we'll have the playoff, or like the knockout standings or whatever, the knockout games, so a round of 16 throughout to win this tournament. And the winner of that tournament, so to say, will get a berth in the Champions League. That would have been the berth from the U.S. Open Cup.
Right.
For me,
the thing about that is you got to make sure that FIFA signs off on it, that CONCACAF signs off on it.
They'll sign off on it. There's no problem there.
Nothing's a done deal with FIFA and CONCACAF.
Absolutely.
That's the caveat.
But here's the real caveat. So what happens if it's Vancouver against Toronto in the championship for this Disney World Tournament, and it's the U.S. Open Cup berth going to a Canadian team that's going to not play in the Canadian Championship because there's no Canadian Championship, right? So there's always that could come into play. I mean, there was the talk of MLS Cup final last year when it was Toronto and Seattle, and Toronto had already lost to Montreal in the Canadian Championship. Well, Toronto can't get that berth, right? So there's lots of different things that are all messed up with this. To me, let's put a trophy on the line and get these guys out on the field and get on with it. Who cares what the ramifications are with that kind of stuff? What scares me, though, is that these games, you're going to create the beginning games to have a real impact on the regular season, so to say. If there is a regular season, I would assume once they bridge that gap and make the start of games, again, whether there's fans involved at a neutral site, whatever, if they're going to count those games as regular season games and then go through this tournament, as soon as those are done, we're going to continue on with soccer. It's not just going to be the end of the season. We'll wait till the beginning of next season for that. I think we're going to see just a continuation on with a small regular season and then an MLS Cup playoffs. So it's a little weird to me how they're, how they're kind of playing this, but Rocky chimes in, Vancouver, whoa, that's a long shot. Absolutely, but that's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a long shot, right? It's going to be some type of thing where we never expected it, and that's what happened. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on this tournament? I mean, group stage games counting towards the regular season. What are your thoughts on this overall?
Just let's make it legit. Like, let's not make it some sort of goofy little, like, hey, let's have some fun tournament thing. Let's make it legit. Let's take it seriously from a league perspective, a rules and enforcement perspective. You know, the players and the coaches are going to take it seriously, and they're going to do everything they can to win their games and give their teams the advantage. Let's take it seriously. That way, in the future, when we're talking about the 2020 MLS season, you don't put the asterisk by it. You don't call it maybe you call it the tournament season, but it's still serious. That's what we want. And I think from what I've been reading, that's what the players want. They want it to be a serious competition that they can say, we are the champions of the 2020 MLS season, not, hey, we won some goofy little tournament and here's our little trophy and a few extra dollars. I did see something that Don Garber said that, yeah, they're going to be throwing a big purse at the end of this tournament just to further incentivize these teams, maybe $1 million purse or something like that. But that's one of the concerns that I've seen. Unfortunately, you got a guy like, what was his name? What did I put in here? Brian Strauss of Sports Illustrated wrote a very sarcastic piece about this MLS tournament, comparing it to the EMLS gimmick. He's like, oh, this is their biggest announcement since they said they're having an EMLS tournament. But, you know, this is the same website that fired Grant Wall, the guy who's been covering American soccer since there's been a modern American soccer. So what does that tell you about Sports Illustrated writing right now? Anyway, side rant, tangent over. But again, let's take it seriously. Let's let the games play out as they should be. Let's let the teams decide it on the field, and may the better team win. May the best team win the season in the tournament. The other thing that I've been reading about too is that they're going to be having a lot more cameras, audio, technology, in social media interaction, other things to really draw the fans in. I haven't seen any details, but I would love to see like live tweets and thoughts of people like put up on the broadcast, advanced stats and metrics filtered into the screen and read, or just let's mic up some coaches and players. Let's get some behind the scenes shots of things going on. What's going on in warm-ups? Let's hear the scouting. I'd love to get a depth look with what these teams do before, during, and post game. Mike, I'm speculating other things that they could be doing, like college football homer broadcasts, right? You've got the neutral national broadcast, and then you've got a separate broadcast that's totally biased for each team. Like, I'd love to hear some of those comments and of course the memes and social media jokes that would come of it. I mean, what are you expecting to see from this tournament, and what are you hoping for?
I'm hoping for an opportunity for MLS to grow their base. That's what I'm looking for overall. I mean, however they feel fit to do so. If that's, a reality TV series about these soccer players living in a luxurious prison, as Alejandro Bedoya would put it, to, bringing their families along and the world of COVID-19 and American sports. I mean, whatever. There's so many different avenues. For me as a soccer fan, I don't care. I just want to see the soccer. I just want to see these guys playing soccer so I can talk about it and I can watch it. That's what I care about. But there's a greater audience to be gained. And anytime you have a setback, and MLS is saying this is going to be $1 billion loss in revenue because of COVID-19 coronavirus. Well, you know what?
Do you think they applied for CARES Act relief? Did the MLS get an application in?
I doubt it. They're probably a little too big for that.
You think?
But damn, I mean, just use this as an opportunity. I mean, this is something that, for me in my personal life and how I had, I was raised by my parents was, if there's a downfall, an opportunity, see everything as an opportunity. And MLS needs to look at this as an opportunity. How do you find ways? How do you innovate, get outside the box, put in the extra work to make something like this a great chance to pick up new followers, new people, and that's kind of what we've been doing. I mean, we've been trying all these different, Bundesliga games and La Liga games and Liga MX games on live. I'm just trying to grow my business, right? That's how I'm looking at it, and trying to find the opportunities that I can out of a bad time. I mean, so that's kind of what I want to see from MLS. But overall, it could be really fun to watch. It could, from what I'm seeing, an MLS World Cup, so to say, type of tournament in the middle of summer, hey, there's an opportunity for something fun to get out of that. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully it will pan out as such, and hopefully MLS has the right people in place to kind of use this app as an opportunity to grow and get better.
I know we're kind of coming up against our hour time frame if we haven't passed it already. But real quick, Mike, one of the challenges of putting this tournament on is being in Florida in the summer. You've got experience living most of your life down in Florida.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think that's going to do to affect these players?
It's going to affect them. The ones that, the ones that are used to it, who have been in Orlando, have been in possibly even Atlanta if they train outside or just in that beautiful indoor, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they're going to be somewhat more used to it than players from the northern cities, because it's a different world. I mean, you're talking about Orlando in the middle of July, early August. It's tough. I mean, I know from playing high school football in Fort Myers, Florida, those 2-a-days in, 95-degree heat with, again, it's 100% humidity, 98% humidity. We're not talking about, 95-degree heat in Illinois, which is hot, but you're talking about a whole nother level. It's different. So there will be challenges for these guys. But you know what? You're professional athletes. You just get through it. You push through it. And you'll get there. So it'll definitely be an opportunity for these guys to learn about what real heat is if they're not used to it. But they'll get through it. They'll put in some hydration breaks every 15 minutes or so, and life will move on.
Exactly. And as Rocky puts it, I did a national championship bike race in August, and it sucked.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to suck for these players. But, again, as Jeff Lorenovitz put it in his MLSPA announcement, we're professional soccer players. We want to play soccer. We trust the league to keep us safe, both from a COVID perspective and from a hydration and just game day perspective. So we're the fans. We want to watch it. We want to talk about it, and hopefully that's what gets to happen. But, Mike, any other final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
No, I've really got nothing. We again, here we are talking soccer with no official soccer to talk about. Man, I can't wait until we get to do our MLS roundup again, where we talk about 6 or 7 MLS games and do some live commentary. But other than that, make sure you join us for our live stream reaction for Inter Milan and Napoli, the second leg of the Coppa Italia. That one should be fun, branching out to a new league this weekend. Other than that, thanks again to our listeners, our viewers, our sponsors. That's what makes us able to do what we do, and give us an excuse to our wives, right?
Right. This is just this is Nikki's quiet TV time on her iPad. So that's all. But really, thank you to Amador Rojas and Rocky Does It All, Ray Orozco, everyone who's tuned in, listened, wrote in. Thank you guys. Thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage, nice premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. Mike, thanks to you for holding it down last week.
Absolutely.
And for doing this with me all these years now. So everyone, have a great week. Stay safe. Enjoy the soccer news, the headlines that are coming out, and we'll talk to you again this weekend.